Hi, everybody. We're still on linear functions and we're looking at standard form. And probably one of the best ways to graph it for most people is to solve for y and put it in slope intercept form. But there's another method that works really, really well. It's using both intercepts to graph it. And that's what we're going to do today. This is S18 standard form, and we're going to find the x and y intercepts. And I'm going to kind of describe the best way to go about doing this. Okay, first of all, the biggest mistake that everybody makes on these kinds of problems is that they get confused as to which one they're looking for. So my recommendation is that you write down the two parts. First of all, in order to find the y-intercept, you need to let x equal 0. So I'm going to write that down. Then I'm also going to look for the x-intercept, and I'm going to let y equal 0. Now, you're not going to believe me, but this is so much better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I do when I'm solving for this one. I have 10x plus 9y equals 0. Now, when I'm doing it in my head, and I don't actually write much of this down, what I do is I cover this part up right here. And the reason is because when you take 10 times 0, it's just 0. So what I do is I just kind of cover this up with my hand, and then I look at what I have left, which is 9y equals 0. And I'm going to divide by 9 in my head on both sides. Now, normally I do this in my head, but I'm going to write it down for you. So y is equal to 0. When x is equal to 0, y is equal to 0. Now, clearly, this is kind of a weird situation in this one where 0, 0 is actually both intercepts, but they ask specifically for the x-intercept. So what I should have done is actually read the question and looked for the x-intercept, which means what happens when y is equal to 0. So this time I'm going to write down the second one, which is 10x plus 9y equals 0. And in this case, if I'm interested in the x-intercept, I let y equal 0, which eliminates this side because that's going to be 0 now. And I'm going to divide by 10 on both sides. And of course, x is equal to 0. The problem with this kind of question where x and y are equal is that you might think you're finding the x-intercept and actually finding the y-intercept and still get the right answer for the wrong reason, which is what you definitely don't want to do. Okay, now this one's much better. So now we're looking for the y-intercept. Now, again, I want to remind you, a really bad habit to get into is to call the y-intercept a number like they do. They're really looking for b, the value of the y-intercept. They're not actually looking for the point. So here's what they're looking for. What is the value of y when x is equal to 0? This is called the y-intercept. It's located on the on the y-axis, and it's going to be somewhere on the y-axis. This is the y-axis. By the way, its equation is x equals 0, because no matter where I go, that's 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, negative 1, 0, 0, 0, negative 2, 0. No matter where I go on the y-axis, x is equal to 0. A lot of people get this backwards. It's a really easy mistake to make. So I know I'm kind of over teaching this, but I want to make sure that you understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now I have x plus 4y equals negative 4. And what I want to do is I want to find out what happens when x is 0. Now I literally cover this up with my hand. I don't write the 0 in there. I just cover this up with my finger and I say, 4y equals negative 4. I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides and I get y equals negative 1. Now, yeah, I probably could have simplified that even more, but it's important that you understand why you're doing what you're doing, not just how. There it is. This time we want the x-intercept. So this time we want the x value when y is equal to 0. So again, I have x minus 2y equals -9, and I'm going to let y equal 0, so this is going to just be 0, and x equals -9. And the x-intercept is actually this point here. Y-intercept this time. So we want to let x equal 0, and we're looking for the value of y. We have 8x plus 3y equals -6. I'm going to let x equal 0. This is 0. And I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides. Now I usually do this in my head, so I get -2. Clearly the y and the x-intercept are at 0, 0. Hopefully you recognized this one again, but I'm going to go ahead and write it. 3x plus 8y equals 0. I want the y-intercept, so I'm looking for this. Remember, if you're looking for the y value, you have to let the x equal 0 to find the intercept. So if x is 0, 8y equals 0, and of course, divide by 8 on both sides, and it's at 0, 0. In this one, we're looking for the x-intercept. And of course, if I were doing this, I would do this in my head, and I would cover up the y part because I want to let y equal 0 and find the x value. So a really good habit is to start, always write this down, and then cover up the y part. That means this. Sorry, 7, y equals 2. I'm letting y equal 0, which is this, and that's 0, and x equals 2. 2, 0 is the actual x-intercept. And keep in mind, it is really easy to mess this up. This is actually that point right there, and it's on the x-axis. Notice that the y value, dang it, the y value is actually 0 here. Almost touched my submit there before it was done. So it's 2. And I'll go a little faster now. This time we want the x-intercept, so we're going to let the y equal 0. And 2x equals 6, so x is 3, 0. That's the actual x-intercept, isn't it? So this time we're looking for the y value when x is 0, which is going to be 1. Make sure you watch the original part so that you know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm interested in the x-intercept, which is going to let y equal 0, and then x is going to be 1. I'm dividing by 13 on both sides. It's actually 1, 0. Don't forget. This one, we are looking for the y-intercept. So we're going to let x equal 0. Now be careful. You're going to be tempted to look at the -15 and the -3 and think +5 in your head. But remember, and I'm going to go ahead and write it out this time. And hopefully I won't hit the submit by accident. What I'm interested in is the y-intercept, which is when x is 0, I want the y value that goes with it. So this is my y-intercept, and I'm going to let x equal 0. That negative is still there in front of the 15. So I'm dividing by -15. And hopefully you all can see that I've got +1/5, not 5. They decided to try and trick you with a fraction. All right. Hopefully you can see it's 0, 0. If you eliminate the x or put a 0 in for x, you need a 0 for y to make it equal to 0. Something you could memorize if you're in standard form. In this one, we want to find the x-intercept. So we're going to let y equal 0, and x is then going to be 3. And my solution is going to look like this, 3, 0. And it is on the x-axis. This one, we are looking for the x value when y is 0. So I'm going to eliminate the y, and I get -1 for the x. In this one, we're interested in the y-intercept. So I have to eliminate the x, and I get negative 6y equals negative 4 when x is equal to 0. It is always a good idea to write this down. If I were doing both intercepts, I could show you why it's so important to write this down, but trust me, you will make huge errors if you don't do it the way I'm telling you. Divide by negative 6 on both sides, and you get positive 2/3. Hopefully y'all can see what I did there. I just reduced this to positive 2/3. A fraction is the only way to express this because 0.6666666 just doesn't work out well. We want the x-intercept in this case, so we're interested in the value of x when y is 0. Again, write that down. It's going to be negative 2/3. The y-intercept is going to be 7/8 because I'm going to let x equal 0. And I get 7/8. And in this one, I want the x-intercept, which is when y is equal to 0. You'll notice I keep writing this down, and there's a really good reason for that. First of all, that is just the value where it crosses the x-axis. This is the actual point, which is the intercept. The y-intercept is going to be 9/15. You do have to reduce your fractions in IXL in general. We're interested in what happens when x is 0, and we're going to get 9/15. This is a nice, easy, this is a point. You do have to reduce that to 3/5, okay? I know they're exactly the same thing. We just divided the numerator and denominator by 3, but you do have to reduce things. In this one, we want the x-intercept, so we want where y is 0, and it's going to be 4/9. I just divided by 9 on both sides. And we're getting there. This is one of the reasons why we like standard form, because it's really easy to work with. Now, here is where people have major issues, and I'm going to show you what will happen if you don't follow directions. A very common mistake, and I'm just going to show you what happens. I guess I should show you the right way first. Now, what I do is for my x-intercept, I write this down. And for my y-intercept, I write this down. And this is what I'm looking for my x-intercept. And this is what I'm looking for my y-intercept. No, here's the problem. A lot of people will cover up the x and get their y value, which is 6/10 or 3/5. So the y value should be 0 3/5. And they're going to cover up the y value, and they're going to cover it up with their hand, and they're going to divide by 3, and they're going to get -2. But instead of writing this, what they tend to do, and I'm sorry this happens, but students will do the following. They'll find their x and y values, and they'll say, oh, -2 3/5 is one of my points, which it's not. And then the other point must be 0 0. I cannot tell you how many times I see students do this over and over again. So I am going to recommend that you substitute in your 0 to find your x, which is going to divide by 3 on both sides and give you your -2 for your x-intercept. And then you're going to cover up the y part, and you're going to divide by, how did I get 3/5? I don't know where the 3/5 came from. Sorry, guys. Oh, because it's a -10. Okay. So I'm going to substitute in this one, and I have -10y equals -6, and I'm going to divide by -10 on both sides and get my 3/5. So x is at -2 0, y value is 0 3/5. Probably too much information. Sorry about that. So we've got 18x plus 2y equals 9. And I'm going to write the 0 and fill it in. And I'm going to write the 0 and fill it in. Now, normally, I only have to do this once because I use my finger to cover it up. That way it's not gone. But anyway, I'm going to put the 0 in for this one. And I get 2y equals 9. I'm dividing by 2 on both sides. I get 9 over 2. You could write 4.5, but I like 9 over 2 better. Now I'm going to put the 0 in for y. And I'm going to get 9 over 18, which is 1/2. So those are my intercepts, really. The x is the 1/2. And the y is the 9 over 2. And I'm just going to do a little bit quicker this time. For the x value, I get 9 over 10. And for the y value, I'm doing this in my head, basically, I get 9 over 5. I said 9 over 5. For the x value, I get 4 over 3. And for the y value, I get 2 over 7. I had to reduce that one. For the x value, I get -1. And for the y value, I get 0.13. Remember, we're looking at -1, 0, and 0, -13. Oh, what the heck is wrong with me? -13. Almost made a mistake there. Always good to write it down. All right, 0, 0, of course. 0, 0, 0, 0. Anytime you're equal to 0, the only way to get there is to have zeros in it. And it looks like we're getting there. All right, so I'm going to let x I'm going to go ahead and write it down. So this one looks like this, and this one looks like this. So when I let the y equals 0, I get 6x equals 10, which is 5 over 3. And when I put the 0 in for x, I just get 0, 10, which is my y-intercept. Maybe one more, maybe two. So for my x, I'm going to let y equal 0. You notice I keep doing that, -8 over 3. And for my y-intercept, I'm going to let this x be 0. And I'm going to get negative, wait a minute, for the y-intercept, I'm going to get positive 8 over 7. Oh. Just going to double check my work today. I don't want to make a silly error. Looks okay. And we did have a final one here. All right, for my last one, I'm going to go ahead and write it out. 20x plus 18y equals 15. I'm going to let x equal 0. And that's going to give me divide by 18. And 15 over 18 is really divide by 3. And you get 5 over 6. You don't want the decimal for that. 0.833333 is kind of ugly. Now the other one I want, and that's for my y-intercept, 5 over 6. Now for my x-intercept, I want to let y equal 0, and I'm going to divide by 20 on both sides, and I'm going to get 15 over 20. When I divide by 5, I get 3 over 4. And it's actually 3 over 4, 0, isn't it? And I hope you guys practice the right way and don't make any errors and are able to graph these. And good luck. Bye, everybody.